Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Villa Pride Down Under, a Villa podcast brought to you from Australia. With your usual hosts, Spud, Tess and Ryno. How are you, boys?
Really good.
Mate, how are you?
How you going?
Yeah, I'm good.
I'm just giggling because we've had all this sound issues beforehand, and I thought I was trying to hold a straight face, but it's been killing me the whole time. So
been a couple of technical issues in the build-up to this, so the behind the scenes.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that though. A few technical issues makes it good.
Oh, that's it exactly. Yeah, Ryno, how are you, buddy?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Good. There's been a lot of ongoings down in Villa this week. Things starting to turn with the interest for the season.
Oh, mate, I'm enjoying some of the content coming out of the club as well this week. They're starting to be a bit more active. It was a bit quiet in the last few weeks, but the social media team must be back from holidays because they're releasing a few videos and giving us a few tasters, which is good.
There's a noticeable difference too in the website, Tess. There's definitely been a bit of work done on it, isn't there?
Yeah, the website's looking really, really good. Not only like we've got the brand new fonts for the club, which is looking really, really good, but the images that they're giving you and the video content that they're giving you is so much better. It just looks inviting. So as soon as you see that there's a notification that we've got a new video out or there's some new information, you're just keen to go and have a look. It looks really, really good in my opinion anyway. It looks like a bit more professional than it did before. I remember going onto the website beforehand and really cloggy, can't find anything. You're clicking into different places and tabs and couldn't find anything. Everything at the moment seems really streamlined. So really good. And plus that new video they released of the training looks awesome to me. Those players, oh my God, they are like, I don't know if you guys have watched it yet, but I watched it. I was like, these guys are working hard, man. Like they're dripping with sweat. You can see like Ross Barkley, like trying to catch his breath. It looks amazing just to see them getting so fit. Emi Buendia is on the video as well, looking really, really sharp and getting fit. So yeah, really, really good, guys.
Do you know what else I'm loving though as well is the sneak peeks of the training gear as well. The new gear looks good, boys.
Oh my goodness!
Do you know what I'd love now is if they could just get someone into the department to look after these gifts for the membership. Because if I get another pin and a water bottle of the same thing, I'm going to be divorced because I've a cupboard in the kitchen full of the same Aston Villa water bottle and. This can't go on for another 16 years.
The problem with that one is that I also got the same pin and the same water bottle, but then I checked the website and they've already got the new stuff. So we signed up early because I think they gave you a discount if you signed up early for the membership. Yeah. They sent you the old stuff. And then as soon as the new date passed, there's a new pin, there's new stuff. And I'm fuming about it, just debating whether I have to spend another membership just to get the stuff that they've released.
I kind of wondered why I was getting a 30% discount. I thought I must have been kind of special. I messaged you and you were like, yeah, I got it as well. Now I know why, because they want to get rid of their old stuff.
Yeah. And it came from somewhere like Finland or somewhere weird like that. I don't know where it was. Not that Finland's weird. I'm not saying Finland's weird. What I'm saying is it just came from some strange place that you think, oh, I got this package. I was like, where's this from? I was like, oh, I don't know anyone there. Thinking it's something dodgy or something. Somebody's ordered something on my credit card or something like that.
Yeah, it was a bit confusing, wasn't it?
Yeah, so, that was a good point though, Spud. Change that up, please, Villa. Give us something new.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so many of the same pin. Look, I love a good pin badge and I love a good water bottle, but like it can't be the same one every year repeatedly over and over and over. Change the color or something. Just do something different. You know?
Yes.
Guys, where I'd like to start today is some interesting transfers of names we're very familiar with. A lot of reports confirmed by Villa origin. So Cameron Archer 100% has returned. We'll start with him. Obviously a clever deal, it looks like, by Monchi, that something that they must have decided at the time with PSR that Sheffield United obviously wanted to stay in division, needed a goal scorer. Now it's kind of come to light that the idea that turned out was that they made the agreement with Sheffield United that if they got relegated, Villa would buy Cameron Archer back. And the way it's kind of looks like it's been structured is that the payments were done in installments, but the first year only had to be a 3 million installment. So if they went down, he would go back for Villa with a matched price. Now, to me, that's extremely clever because that will show what kind of money it's worth for teams to stay in the Premier League, because if Cameron Archer had come and scored the goals to keep them in the Premier League, they would have paid the rest of installments and it would have been happy days. Cameron Archer would be a Sheffield United Premier League player going forward. If it failed to materialise, which of course like a lot of people would have expected not to, because Sheffield United were always going to be in a firefight, then it wasn't going to ruin them and they were stuck with a Premier League striker on wages down in the division. It works for him because he probably didn't have to take a cut when he got relegated. And there's a lot of moving parts in this transfer, and it seems like a very well-structured deal that maybe the Premier League are going to hate, but the two clubs involved, it makes a lot of sense for us. So what was your thoughts on this deal, boys?
To be honest with you, I didn't know the intricacies of what you just explained there, man. That's probably the first time I heard it explained in such detail. So, it's smart, isn't it, the way the two clubs have gone about it? And we're starting to see a lot more of it. With Cameron Archer, it's interesting because, you know, we've got Ollie Watkins on the books, John Duran for who knows how long. He's probably our only other recognised striker in the senior setup, isn't he? So... it's hard to see where he fits in for me. I think obviously Ollie Watkins is the starting striker, that's obvious, but I don't know whether Villa will be looking to sell again or if he'll hang around. I'm not so sure. I think he could go out again. But yeah, interesting deal though. I hadn't heard it broken down like that.
I don't remember actually seeing him play that much for Sheffield United towards the end.
He got 4 goals in 17 Premier League games, Tess. That was his statistics, yeah. So he didn't play that much.
No. Yeah, and we played 17 games. He was there for the whole season, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so it was a kind of good deal for him to send him to Sheffield United so that he was going to get game time, you know? Like it was a good idea to see how he would do in the Premier League. Obviously, you're playing in a team that's going to be struggling to stay in the Premier League. Tough ask to get him to score, 10 or 15 goals in a Premier League season anyway with anyone. But only getting 17 matches out of 30 odd. Maybe they didn't fancy him. Maybe they just wanted to try and go with a bit of experience. I don't know whether he had injuries or not. We just don't know. I was a huge sort of person who really liked Cameron Archer just before he went to Sheffield United. I thought he would be a good backup to Ollie, but then obviously we got John Duran in. I thought it was a good move for him. I thought he would go there, and if he excelled, he could come back to Villa if Villa were interested. So it looks as though he's come back because it didn't work out at Sheffield United. I don't know what the plans would be for him now. I don't know. I think it just depends on how pre-season goes. Maybe he stays with us for pre-season and see if he can contribute. Does John Duran go to West Ham? Because the Chelsea rumours died off pretty quickly, haven't they? Now no one's really talking about the Chelsea move anymore, and he's not tweeting about Chelsea anymore. So maybe a move to West Ham might be on or could be on, and Villa need to make sure they've got somebody in the backup in the meantime. I personally thought that they would try and get a signing in who was a backup striker, maybe somebody who's got a bit more experience, who is happy to kind of play second fiddle, maybe sit on the bench. Weird one. So good to see him back. I think he would have enjoyed his time and learned a lot while he was away up at Sheffield. And we'll just have to wait and see what happens next. What are your thoughts?
I kind of think circumstances kind of played against them. I think maybe Sheffield United came up thinking that maybe they were going to be more competitive than they were. Maybe they've seen themselves doing a Brentford, and Brentford obviously had strikers coming up who could score goals in the division, because Sheffield United played attractive football in the Championship under Paul Heckingbottom. They went with a lot of the same players that they came up with. Now, the big difference for them is they made 2 crucial mistakes weeks before the Premier League started. They lost their 2 best players from the Championship. Ndai, who just recently signed for Everton, he went to Marseille after scoring all the goals for Sheffield United, which pretty much got them promoted. He left 2 weeks before the season started. which is when roughly they brought in Cameron Archer, obviously, as their director of players. And then they lost Sander Berg. Now, the interesting when they lost Sander Berg to Burnley, who was one of their main competitors. So they just sold their best player from the Championship to their midfielder to Burnley, who were always going to be one of their competitors for staying up. Both of them ended up going down in the end. So, like 2 weeks before the season started, you've lost your two best players from the Championship. So that's straight away, that's bad management. You bring in Cameron Archer, who Cameron Archer isn't like 7 foot or 6 foot who's going to hold the ball up, you know what I mean? I think he was the wrong striker at the time anyway, you know, for them. And unfortunately for Cameron, I think he's the one who's got lost in this kind of mismanagement in the meantime. Stephen Gerrard should have, and you know, I was a strong advocate for this at the time, boys. I thought Stephen Gerrard should have loaned him out originally. Like when he was the manager, I thought it was very unfair to keep him. Stephen Gerrard, personally, I think he buckled to fan pressure because Archer was never going to play for us in the Premier League that year, but obviously he was under wicked pressure to keep him, and he buckled and he kept him. And I think that was the set in motion of setting Archer back, because Archer's stock was so high for a while. Emery came in, sent him on loan down to Middlesbrough. He done really, really well. You can understand why Sheffield United would buy him. But it was the wrong style of football. Paul Heckingbottom got sacked.
Yeah,
because Sheffield United were finding it so on. Chris Wilder was brought in. Chris Wilder is a totally different manager to Paul Heckingbottom. Chris Wilder knows what it takes to stay in this division if you're a Sheffield United. You know, it takes long balls into the box. It takes being good at set pieces. They just weren't good enough, Sheffield United, but the way they had to transition is completely opposite to any attribute Cameron Archer has. So for him to only get 17 games, I don't think it's any slight on him personally, because I don't think he fits that Chris Wilder system to try and stay in the league. And that wasn't the system in place when he came. But what he did do was sign himself into an agreement where he was smart as well, that if Sheffield United go down, well, I get to keep my wages. I get to go back to Villa. I don't drop down to Championship wages. I don't get this. So it's one of them weird deals where I think everybody just seen a benefit. Sheffield United knew, look, we'll try and stay up, but there's a chance we'll go down. Archer was like, well, I got to go and play first team football, but if we go down, I get to still be a Premier League footballer and open my options. And Villa got a striker back for like a third of the price that they had sold them. So like there was no losers in this, you know. The only thing for me, the only one who I'd say probably loses money wise, no, Archer hasn't lost. But for experience at his age, I think he's lost a year, personally.
Yeah.
Look what he did in Middlesbrough, him and Aaron Ramsey. Look, like, you know, and at his age, he's better off playing week in, week out in the Championship than sitting on the bench in the Premier League. Personally, that's just my opinion.
Yeah. Do you think he sticks around, Spud, this season? What do you think the plan is for him?
The fact they structured the deal like this, obviously PSR would have been an issue. Like, obviously would have came into the thinking. But they must see something in him. Villa. They must, you know, and yes, last year we've talked about this many times, so I won't go into it. Obviously, the conference and the top four was obviously the focus next year. So maybe next year is going into the 4 competitions, is because there was games where Archer could have started and he never did. So they always knew in the early rounds of the cup and stuff. So they obviously knew he was going to be leaving. Maybe it's different now. Maybe he starts every cup game.
I always felt he was a good finisher too. When you've seen him play before, I always felt like he was a good finisher. Not the quickest, but you know, he gets in and around, and he's not scared to take those kind of cracking shots from just outside the box, or he's in and around the box and can finish really well. So I was surprised that he didn't do as well as we would have liked to see him do moving to Sheffield United.
If someone held a gun to my head now and asked me what the answer is now, I would say he'll probably go to one of the Championship favourites.
Yeah.
Or possibly Everton, who are sorely lacking a goal scorer. Is he going to be factored into this deal? Not straight away, but is he going to be factored into the Onana deal that we're getting onto later? Is there a little agreement there? But for me, I think PSR is going to dominate this deal, and I think he'll end up going to a top level Championship team. Sold.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because for me as well, even before Archie came back, and if Duran stayed, I would expect maybe even Duran to go on. It's definitely a position I think we'd be looking to strengthen. Because if Ollie Watkins is so important for us, and the goals he scored last season, if he goes down injured or touch wood he doesn't, but I was expecting to see some movement in that area this summer and try to find a quality backup, which is tough because you're going to be playing second fiddle to Ollie, and not many strikers are going to want to come and sit on the bench, are they? But I did expect us, to be honest, to be bringing someone in and not bringing Archer back.
Yeah. What do you see
think we will?
happening?
I still think there might be some movement, like you say. I don't see Archer hanging round. I think there's possibly a loan or a sale. But with John Duran going out as well, we've got to be careful, haven't we, with the timing of it all. And we need to make sure if we do get the business done with those two, if they are going to leave, then we've got to get it done and make sure we get some reinforcements in as well. Because, one striker in Ollie Watkins and then Lewis Dobbin from Everton can sort of play forward or wide, but still there's no out-and-out striker, is there, to come in for Watkins then?
So if I was to put a gun to your head right now, say 1st of September, where will Cameron Archer be?
I think he'll be sold. I think he'll be sold, and I think it'll be to maybe lower team in the lower Premier League or someone top of the Championship, in that top 5 Championship.
Des?
Yeah, can't see him being at the club, to be honest. I'd imagine that the owners and Monchi, Unai are still boxing smart, if you like, for lack of a better term. I think they are looking for a deal. If they do like him, they're looking for a deal that will help to bring him back, if they still like him. Otherwise, it's going to be a deal where they can just make some money from him and let him go on and continue. Because he's 23 now, is he? Is he 23 now? I think
he can't be far off that test. Yeah, I'd say you're right.
And for 23, you don't want to sit on the bench anymore, do you? You want to be playing. And so the only way that I can see is that Villa looked at it as a potentially good move to bring him back for obviously the reasonable price that you outlined a bit earlier, and they could probably sell him for a bit more money and let him go on a permanent. I can't see him staying beyond September.
Do you know what, though, lads? Can I ask you one quick question? And this will probably answer all of it for me, and I know my answer. Last year, we had a right bout of injuries towards the end of last season. Was there any point to that struggle with injuries did you think, I wish we'd Cameron Archer on the bench? I didn't, personally.
No, not for me.
I don't think that's what we were missing at any point. I think John Duran was perfectly capable of coming off the bench, and we only needed one fill-in. Do you know what I mean? So, obviously, I'm not Unai Emery. He's a total different thing. In my opinion, I don't see at any point. I genuinely think this was just a PSR-pleasing, smart deal they put in place.
And I think the way we play and the way, we sort of go with one forward as well probably doesn't suit Archer with his stature and his body size. Like you just mentioned, John Duran can come on. He's a big lump, same as Ollie Watkins, but they're both big, physical, athletic forwards. Whereas I think if we brought Archer into our structure, he'd struggle a little bit because he just hasn't got that physicality to probably hold the ball up, run the channels, and I think that's where he probably doesn't quite fit for us, and that's why I could kind of see him leaving. And John Duran was the perfect foil for Watkins last year. You bring him off in 75 minutes and you bring on John Duran, who just comes in for a bit of chaos for 15 minutes. He's big, burly striker, and he's good at what he does, brilliant shot, and just causes chaos. And like you're saying, Spud, if that was me thinking of last season bringing Cameron Archer on, I don't think he has the same effect.
No, maybe he can go in as a 2, but we don't play with 2. It's very rare.
No, we don't.
The odd time we had Watkins and Duran on together, but it was more panic stations at the end of a game or whatever, or someone got injured. Diaby went off injured and Duran had come on for him or whatever. Bailey had ran his race, But there was no point that I thought, I wish we had Archer on the bench, there was no game I seen last season that I thought he could have come on and changed it. Nothing that Duran couldn't do, if you get me. But even for himself, he's proven he can go to the championship and bang in goals. He deserves to be starting with a championship team. He's a finisher. There's no doubt about that. And I don't think it's any slight on him. I don't think that he is I won't say good enough, but I don't think his style suits any team in the Premier League that consistently has the ball. He's not going to improve any of them. And then the teams that don't have the ball that he would improve aren't going to get the best out of him because they're not going to feed him enough chances, which is why I think he'd be lethal in the top half of the championship. You know what I mean? Imagine him down in Leeds or, he's proven he can do it down there. Yeah. And teams where there's two up top, and because he's a finisher, there's no doubt about that. He's for sure. Goals, Guys, just while we're talking about that now, that brings us on to the next structured deal. We've learned, and this one I'm very happy about, to be honest. I
can't wait till the season starts for Spud Analytics. Honestly,
Mr. Jaden Philogene Bidace has made a return, lads. It looks like it's signed, sealed, delivered. Not confirmed by the club themselves, like it is at Archer, but all the best people that reports these transfers have pretty much said it's done. I want to hear your thoughts on that.
I didn't want him to go in the first place, to be honest with you. I felt like he played his way. He played some games, and the way that he was playing it, I felt like he deserved to stay, actually. And maybe not to be a starter for us, obviously, but definitely deserved to stay as somebody who could impact a game. He was quick. He was hustle and bustle, two-footed. He was giving everything when we saw him play. I can't remember the last game he played.
It was the preseason tour in America. He played 3 games and really lit it up.
Yeah, and he was just doing really, really well. And I was like, I mean, if this isn't somebody who's out there trying to get a new contract or trying to stay at a club, he was better than a lot of the players that we had when he had those games and that opportunity. And I felt like it was good that he could go and play first team football. I just didn't want him to go. I felt like he could have stayed and contributed to our season. I felt like he was strong on the wing. You see him cut inside. He lost the ball a couple of times, but he's young. You expect that kind of stuff, but he was determined. He was strong. And yeah, just a little bit disappointed that he went, to be honest. I felt like we should have kept him. We now are going to have him back, and I'm pretty excited about it, actually. I think it's going to be a good move. It'll be a good move to come as an impact sub. I don't think he's going to get game in, game out. I think obviously Leon Bailey has that at the moment. I don't know what's going to happen with Diaby. But a really good opportunity for Philogene to come back and fight for a place, because I think he has the ability to. I think he's a really good player.
Ryno, I was just going to ask you, because Tess made some great points there. Obviously he had a great preseason in the American tour last year, and I think there's not many Villa fans who would have watched that series that would have thought that he was going to be sold. Looking at the way Villa have been structuring deals, do you think there was a bit of method to the madness behind it now, knowing the PSR was going up? Do you think this was always the plan? Or do you think that the fact that he went to Hull and he thrived and that we've decided to bring him back now? Or do you think there was always a plan behind it?
I think the plan's always been in the back there, but I think the rules for the Champions League and having homegrown players, and that's another factor that plays into here. And I think Villa have been a lot smarter earlier on than what we've actually been seeing with some of these deals, and only some of this stuff's coming into fruition now, isn't it? We're starting to see this stuff, and we were all disappointed when Philogene Bidace left, because, like you say, when we were on that American tour last pre-season, he was a standout, and out of all of the young players who were close to breaking through, we all thought he was the one, didn't we? We thought he's the closest one. And if you remember back, this is before Leon Bailey has just had a really good season. There was a lot of question marks over Leon Bailey at this time as well. So there was competition. There was a potential space for Philogene Bidace, because we were all sort of, apart from me and you, Spud, because we're the Leon Bailey fan club, but but there was a lot of question marks over Bailey and what his role was going to be, and he wasn't a safe bet to get in the team, and I think a lot of people thought Philogene Bidace would probably be the competition to him. But I think him going out to Hull, getting a full season down the Championship, would have done him wonders, playing in that league and the competition. And coming back to us now, he's probably come back a bit of a man and got a lot of good football. And he's spent another season at the Championship at Cardiff on loan. So he's starting to rack up some games now, which is good. And there was rumours of Barcelona wanting him at one point in the media. So his form's been really good. But I'm happy to have him back. I think, again, we've sort of filling the squad now with two or three players to each position, aren't we? Which is, good squad depth for us.
It's funny, because you said there are rumours of Barcelona, but apparently there was serious interest there, and apparently he ruled himself out. That he said he wanted to stay in the Premier League. Now I don't know how true this is, but that's what they're reporting, because he made a statement saying that he's flattered by the interest from Barcelona, but I've decided my future is in the Premier League. So
I'd rather go back to sunny Birmingham.
That's it. Yeah. He loves Pop World on a Saturday night after again. But the thing for me, right, is that I look at this deal and it's kind of like Tess's point is so prevalent, why wasn't he starting this game on our first game against Newcastle? Because if you were to base it solely on pre-season form, he would have been right up in the first 4 or 5 starters, surely, wouldn't he, boys? Performance-wise, he was brilliant.
For sure.
Did Emery see this and just think, let's go, let's go down to the Championship. If Hull get promoted, because the deal is structured apparently is that the deal was that if Hull don't get promoted, Villa can match any offer that any team, and they have to be notified of the offer they're going to be accepting before they accept the offer, right? So say the idea was if Everton make a bid and Hull have decided to accept it, they had to notify Villa before they've notified Everton that they're accepting the bid. So Villa knew what the structure was going to be, so Villa could match the bid. I mean, it's very clever from Villa, And, for me, and it's something I haven't seen in any media reports. This is just something myself that I've come up with. Do you not find it interesting though that Christian Purslow was on the board who originally made all these FFP rules, and Villa are the ones who are finding all the loopholes?
Little loopholes.
That is an interesting point, actually. Yeah.
I was thinking about this at work the other day, and I remember Christian Purzlow's interview whilst he was still CEO of Villa. And he's like, yeah, PSR, blah, blah. He goes, look, I understand FFP. He says, I was on the board who created it. It's going to be a big thing in the future. But Villa are the front runners and all the ones. Chelsea were probably the first to find a loophole with the amortization. But Villa are the ones who are finding this about the loan players, swapping players. I just... Look, Christian, if you're listening, I'm not accusing you of anything. But if you are still helping us, mate, thank you very much. But,
alleged. The
only other
he
point
was interesting because just quickly, I remember seeing a video. I think it was last season of Christian Purslow in the stands singing Villa songs.
I seen an interview with him on a business, a Financial Times podcast after.
Yeah.
And he said that when he was the CEO of Villa, when we went on that 10-game run, all he wanted to do was be in an away end for one game, he said, as a supporter, because he said the vibe in that 10-game run, he said he's been involved with Liverpool, Chelsea and Villa. And he said that 10-game run in the Championship that Villa went in after such a bad run and being relegated and everything, he said the atmosphere from the away fans in that 10-game run, he'd never experienced anything, and he promised himself when he stepped away from his role that he'd go back as an away fan at some point. And it's funny, a lot of people do it because Ryno, do you remember under the cosh with Paul Lambert? He said the same about Dortmund, remember? And, so
that was an interesting one. That one.
And then there was a video after of Christian Purslow in the away, and I can't remember what game is that, but it's brilliant, isn't it? But it's funny because he was on the board of the guys who created the rules around FFP, so he'd know everything inside. I'm not saying it's him, but it's just
he would have known.
The Philogene deal, it's kind of interesting, isn't it? Because obviously we're not privy to the in and out, but the basic story that's out there is that Ipswich offered 18 million, Everton offered 18 million, and Villa were given the option of matching that 18 million, that Hull were going to accept the bid, so Villa get first refusal at that price. Now, The thing is, Villa have a 30% sell-on fee, so that means that price becomes 13 million for Villa, and that sell-on fee is written off. And that's what it looks like. We sold them for 5 million. So what we're doing then is getting a player back effectively with more experience for 7 million. It's incredible business, like.
It's interesting that he's decided that he would like to come back to Villa as well, though, isn't it?
I was just about to say that, Tess, as well, because there's so much interest in him. Why do you think he's chosen to come back to Villa, boys? Is he, I know the Champions League and where we're at, but obviously there's competition for places, and he'd know that. But is there, I don't know, he's supremely confident of getting in, or what do you think?
Or was there conversations between him and Unai before he ever left?
Maybe.
Possibly, but I think he fancies himself. I think that he's gone away and grown as a player. I wouldn't be surprised if he does fancy himself at the moment to say, you know what, I might not get to start every game, but there's a lot of games next season with Villa, and also might get a few Champions League appearances as well, and I'm going to compete with Leon Bailey to take that right-sided position. There'll be games in the League Cups or the FA Cups that he's going to play in, and he'll get minutes in the Champions League because we don't really have somebody who's a bit like him. And he's a strong lad. He's a strong lad as well, a bit different.
Two-footed as well. Two-footed. Massive.
Probably could play on both sides if it, and you know what Unai does with the players. He coaches all these players. I think he fancies himself and says, you know what, this is a really good opportunity. Yeah, I could go to Everton or I could go to Ipswich, and I'm more than likely going to play. But what does their season look like?
Who's
Ipswich
to say,
have
though,
just come up.
Who's to say though he's competing with Leon Bailey? Like, what if he's coming in as that number 10? I remember I said to you at the time when he got sold to Hull, I said it's so disappointing because I think that man would open pitch either side of him. I remember I saying that to you lads. I was like, I can see him being able to play in the middle. Do you think he's coming back in as the number 10?
Oh, I can't see why he couldn't.
See it. Sorry,
I can't see why he couldn't play that position. But I'm just interested when you start listing out the players we've got, on the flanks or in that 10 position. We've got Buendia coming back. You start looking at all these players coming in. It's tight for spots already, isn't it? You've got JJ coming back. It's unreal. Like, you look at, Iling-Junior's come in, JJ's coming back, Buendia, Bailey, Diaby, Lewis Dobbin,
Rogers,
Jaden Philogene-Bidet. It's like, that's
exciting.
And do you know what? Like looking back at our bench last year and even the year before, we've needed some depth, haven't we? And some players who've been able to come on and change it up a little bit. That's one thing we haven't had, is especially when we get injuries and you're sort of coming towards the end of the season, we just didn't have people to bring on, did we? We were just sort of going with the same troops. And I think you've brought it up before, but a lot of our players played a lot of minutes last year, and it probably burnt them out towards the end. So I think that's one thing that I'm looking forward to, is being able to have a bench, an actual bench we can use and bring players on.
Boys, that just kind of nicely brings us on to the next point we're going to talk about. And as I said, I'm very excited about Philogene coming in, but not so happy about the rumours we're hearing about Moussa Diaby. And I just wanted to get your point. Like, there's obviously a lot going on at the moment around him. And look, we know media blow things out of proportion, and there are certain media outlets you take notice from. But we know from the past, if it's repeated links, there's always something in it. So, Tess, I'm going to start with you. Moussa Diaby, what's your opinion on it?
Really interesting development, because it's his first. He's only had one season at Villa, really, to be honest with you, and he started off with a bang. Looked really, really impressive, and then as it got towards sort of winter time, kind of dropped off. Didn't seem to be playing within himself, and then even towards like the end of the season, I felt like he looked like he was lacking confidence. He got a couple of goals here and there, didn't he? But he didn't look like the player that we got when he came, like in the first few months of his transfer. I think he's a good player. I think he's a really good player. If you're asking me whether there are players out there that we could probably, if you're asking me whether a move to Saudi should be on the cards, No, I don't think so. I think we should give him another season and see what Unai can do with him and see if he develops his game in the Premier League. Because the other leagues are different, right? They have a different style of play. We have a lot of power. We have a lot of pace. The game in the Premier League is really, really quick. And it has become one of those technical leagues as well. It'd be interesting to see if he gets one more season to see whether he can develop his game like Leon Bailey did. You know, we all remember there was frustration on Leon Bailey in the way that he played, the inconsistency. And so far, Diaby hasn't been the consistent player, but I feel like if he had one more season, we could try to see if he's going to do that. If a big offer of money came for Diaby, I would probably take it based on
how much that's like when you consider now we've spent like I think we spent 52 million euros on him, right? Which is obviously going to spread over the 5-year contract, right? And I think that was rising to 58, depending on certain things, you know, French parents, blah blah. But we'll forget about the add-ons for a minute. So we'll take it as a straight 52. Reported. We no podcast in anything. No, the outcome. We'll go with a 52. We'll say 52 million euros. So which is what 60 million or about 50 million pound. Let's say. If
so
you were to.
I don't think how much of a profit would it take
for you to sell? How much of a profit would it take for you to sell after a year, roughly?
I would, based on his performances, it'd be good to get our money back.
Yeah, you'd be happy with that?
I think it would be. I'd be happy to get our money back because I genuinely feel with the places that he's been playing, we've got players that can do that. We already have people like Emi Buendia who's on his way back in, but Jacob Ramsey can do that role. We've got Morgan Rogers who can play in and around that kind of area. You know, we have players in attacking areas based on, and I'm just basing it on the performances of Diaby from the last season. We've got players that can play that role the same, if not better. I know he's a very quick player, but in the style that we play, we don't necessarily have to have fast players because we keep the ball a lot now. You know, we're a team that.
Yeah, we don't play with massive width. Like you're right. Yeah.
And this is just my opinion, and you know, I'm happy for anyone to give me some feedback. But my opinion is, if we could get our money back for him, I think we've got 2 or 3 players already that can do what he does.
Can I ask another question regarding that test? Right, say like I think you make some great points there. Can I ask you though? Do you think you'd sell him based on performances, or do you think it like from the club's point of view? Or do you think it's a smart PSR deal? Which angle do you think the club would come from? Like, do you think it's not going to work with Diaby? We've got a better formation, or do you think this is just a good PSR deal for the club? Because sadly, modern football, we have to think about both sides of it. But like, let's take the football side out of it. Do you think the club are solely looking at this as in, well, we can get our money back for a player that's not quite settled, and we've got young lads who aren't costing near as much, can replace him, or do you think it's solely just he's not going to settle? He's not what we bought. For you, what's your general feeling? That's if he's being sold. Of course, this is only rumor, it's not been confirmed by any of the real big hitters either. You know, the big reporters have all said there's interest, but there's been no bid. So we got to take it for what it is. But let's take it that it's a serious bid. You know, like, do you think it's a PSR move, or do you think it's a system move? If you get me.
That's a tough question because really, to be honest with you, when it comes to PSR and that comes into mathematics, and I'm not really good at maths unless you owe me money. So
let's pretend that Villa owe you money on Diaby, right? No. I don't mean to go into that. But
if you owe me money, you better sell that and give me my money.
No, like I don't want like the maths of it, but like I'm saying, do you think Villa are doing it from he's not going to make a point of view, or
I think it would make sense as a PSR point of view. I think it would make sense. I feel like it would bring an income in that we've spent hasn't quite worked when we've got other players that can do his job, making money back.
So you reckon it's kind of a case of he's on the higher end of the position that he plays, and we can make a profit, but also replace him pretty easily in the team, kind of thing.
Because he'll be on a good wage, right? He'll be on pretty decent wage. And
especially
I think,
with Al Nassr being in from last year, I'm sure they would have had to up the wage, the weekly wage as well to swing it in their favour.
No, and look, I think it would make sense PSR wise. I think it would make sense because of. I don't think he's settled. I don't think he's settled in England at all. I don't think he's had a consistent season. PSR wise, we've got players who are on less wages, who we could eventually sell in a few years if we needed to, for a profit. It would balance the books a bit better at the moment, and actually, it would probably allow us to invest that money in another position. I.e., Ryno, you mentioned it earlier. Like we could be looking at another striker somewhere, or we could be looking at another quality midfielder to who's going to come in. I don't know if Onana is the replacement for Dougie Luiz. I don't know. I didn't watch Onana too much last season. I know he's a really good player, but I don't know if he's the same type of player like that ball playing midfielder who can kind of control the games.
Yeah,
seems like a box to box player. But the answer to the question is, yeah, I think it would make sense to sell him for PSR purposes.
Fair enough. And Ryno, same question. You looking at Diaby, what's your initial thoughts on it?
We've spoken about on a previous pod, boys. I think really important for Diaby this season is a good pre-season, and we've seen the videos from the club. Last year, we mentioned, he was touch and go whether he was going to join Villa, so he didn't join till late, so didn't get a proper pre-season with us. Came in, obviously the Newcastle game was a disaster. He did all right in that game, but then picked up a few injuries through the season. I'm not ready to give up on him yet. I still think there's a really good player in there. I think a pre-season under Emery and more time, adjusting and adapting to the Premier League. I think he's a real weapon. That pace, you can't be understated how important having someone like that is, even if he's not starting games and coming off the bench. The level he's played Champions League football before, French international. I really rate Moussa Diaby. Didn't have a great season last season, but we've seen this before. Leon Bailey's prime example, sort of slow start, but probably one of our most important players last year. Competition for places though, and if that money's being bandied about, depending on how tight we are for PSR, it might be something we have to do. If there's 60, 70 million being thrown at us for a player like Diaby, I'd be really sad to see him go. But we've just listed the players. We're quite well stocked in those positions now. I do think he offers just that raw, direct pace, though, that a lot of the other ones probably, they're quick, but Diaby's next level. So I'm not ready to give up on him yet, to be honest with you.
Fair point.
Would you be disappointed if we sell him?
Yes, at this point, because I just feel like there's unfinished business there, and I just feel like there's been glimpses of what he can do in the league, and I think you just give him a pre-season, more time to integrate and get used to the Premier League. And the Premier League's a tough league to go into, isn't it? From Bundesliga to Premier League, they're all different. But I think, the physicality of the Premier League and the amount of games we play, there's no winter break, is there, in the Premier League? It's just straight in Christmas schedule. If you're playing 3 games, then the cup games are coming in. So I think it's been a tough period for him. But I'd be disappointed if we sold him now. But like you touched on, Spud, PSI is kind of ruling the game at the moment, isn't it? So it might be something that we have to do to balance the books and be able to distribute the money through the squad.
He's got a good song. I love the Diaby song. I think it's awesome.
It's class. Yeah.
What do you think, Spud? Because you asked the question and about the rumours. Be interesting to have your Spud analytic. By the way, everyone, Spud Analytics will be coming during the season. A special dedicated section to Spud to give us an analysis on the game. What are your thoughts on your question of Diaby, PSR, or needs must to sell?
Look, I've been as Ryno touched off earlier. I've spoke before. I expect Diaby to, before these rumours came to light, to be honest, because there's no smoke without fire. I expect Diaby to have a big season for us next year. I thought he was going to become a prevalent player for us. Like I look at like this time last year, everyone wanted rid of Bailey, and I think Diaby is far ahead of what Bailey was in his bad season. You know, people forget as well. Like Diaby had 19 goal contributions, like between goals and assists, like which is really good for a transition year. Ryno touched off a good point we've made loads of times, like is that he had such a disrupted pre-season as well. You know, like there was, is he going to Al Nassr, is he going to Villa? And I'm sure that would have been definitely a serious debate, because it would have been Premier League football against untold riches. Let's not dance around it, you know. Like, it's easy for us as football fans to say, oh, well, why isn't he going playing in the Premier League? If that money is thrown on in front of you, like, it must be very, very hard to turn around. So it must have been very hard. Oscar, remember Oscar, he was player Brazil, Chelsea player. And he was 26 when he moved to China. He was getting 400 grand a week at the time when China offered, and like, which was before inflation or anything, was crazy money. Like, this was long before the Saudi money. And I remember the Brazilian reporter asked him, "Oh, why you moving from Chelsea to the Premier League to China? You're never going to get a Brazilian cap again." And he was like, "Well, the Brazilian cap isn't going to set my grandkids up." Like, and he was 26 talking about this, you know. So, you know, like, he goes, I go to China, and he goes, generations of my family will be set up for life, like, you know. And football is a short career as well. And of course, there's always like, we know as well, Diaby is a devout Muslim, so going playing in Saudi Arabia may be a pull for him. What's came to light recently as well is obviously it's huge news as well about Laurent Blanc is going to be the manager of Al Ittihad, which is, don't underestimate that, because that is huge. You know, Laurent Blanc is a massive legend in French football. So if he's starting to look, you know, maybe that's a thing. If it comes straight down to the club selling him, I'd be disappointed, to be honest. For me, I think unless he's angling for a move, I don't think we should sell him. I think he deserves, he signed a 5-year contract. We're a year in, he got 19 goal contributions. I think he needs to be given another year, because I think if you can get 19 in a season that's disrupted, how many goal contributions are you going to get in a season where you're settled? You've had a good preseason.
Yeah.
PSR obviously is a thing. We've passed the line for June 30th. But looking at the Philogene and Archer deals, Monchi and Dama Videgani obviously don't just look at this year, they're looking ahead all the time. So maybe this Diaby deal, as Tess says, is looking ahead to next year, because obviously they're losing the 100 million off the books of the Grealish deal. That 3-year cycle is now over. But for me, I think the only reason we would sell him is if he's actually angling for the move, and I don't see why he would unless the money is astronomical. So it
would have to be, though. It'd have to be astronomical money.
Wages, yeah. The reported transfer fee doesn't seem really pull for me for Villa. You know, like, I don't see why. But then when you look at how PSR actually works, they buy him for 60 million over 5 years. That's only a loss of 12 million a year. But then you sell him for 60 million. That's instant 60 million profit on your books for that year. You know, and unfortunately, as football fans, we hate it, but the club have to actually take all this stuff into account. And if you're actually
to see him have a consistent season.
That's why I'd like him to be given one more year test, because I think that Saudi money will always be there. He's got a long contract. He's only 24, 25 as well. It's not like he's 30 odd. Unless he's unhappy, because I don't think you should ever keep an unhappy player, because I don't think it's feasible. I don't think what's the point?
Let's put it this way. I don't think he didn't go to France, did he? He didn't go to Germany, with France for the Euros.
No.
He's got an opportunity next season to have a more consistent season, settle in a bit better. I think there'll be a few better players around him as well, a bigger squad.
More exposure in the Champions League as well.
More exposure in the Champions League. And if he can get that consistency, he will play for his country again. He will get Champions League football, and if he does want that big move a bit later on, it won't be going to Saudi. It will be going to, maybe somewhere in Spain, or
there was a report came out recently there, lads. I was reading it on a really prevalent football for him. Like they done a test. I don't know how they break it down, but the Saudi Arabian league only got matched as the 27th powerful league in the world, like as in not for money but for standard. 27th in the world, So if you're going over there 24, 25, and I'll never knock a player for trying to go money. Their career is short, but there's a serious lack of ambition if you want to go there,
Yeah.
Unless
you're like Ronaldo's age or you're Messi's age, and you're at that time where, but they're different. That's different kettles of fish. They are players who have achieved a lot. They've achieved
and
a
their
lot.
brand. They're a brand as well,
Their brand. They've come to the end of their
worldwide.
careers. They're going to go over and they're going to make super money. And I understand that. But if you're in your 24, 25, if you're in your 20s, really, you have to, unless you're like one of those sort of injury-prone players, you have to wonder, other than money, because I think, what is the pull in football terms? Because to be honest, I don't ever see a result, and I don't know where we are. I don't ever see any results that come up for that particular league. I don't know how many goals Ronaldo scored. I don't know which other players are there at the moment. I don't know. I hear more of MLS than I do of the Saudi league.
In their defense too, though, like off air, I was talking to you about a job like that I'm battling with at the moment, trying to make a decision. That's for $5 or $6 an hour difference. Can you imagine what they're going through when it's like a difference of 5 million a season? So I do pity them as well.
No, but I think it's an interesting topic as well, though. I think it's a really interesting topic to kind of, because you have to kind of discuss these kind of rumors when they come out, because you don't know whether there is something to it. They don't just come out of thin air all the time.
It's been repeated though, hasn't it, with Diaby to Saudi as well? It's been lingering for a long time. There's been multiple rumors with it. So, and you can understand the draw. It's purely financial test, like you say, because I don't watch the Saudi league. I don't know many people who do. I'm not saying people don't, but it is just it's not a football decision, is it? It's a financial decision, and you can't knock it. Like you say, that money is, just astronomical. And
when it's
like you say,
it's very different, isn't it, to go over there?
And
all it's easy for us to say, "Oh, I'm a big Villa fan. Why would he want to leave Villa?" But he's French. He's got nothing to do with Villa. Like he's if he's offered 5 million more a year over 3 years, that's going to feed his family for years. It's you can understand that. But I don't want this podcast to turn into a financial podcast, and we need to look at this as a supporter's point of view. And Moussa, why would you want to play with anybody else?
Yeah, exactly.
You hear of some footballers, though, don't you? Some footballers actually don't love the game like we do. You hear like Benoit Assoacato at Spurs was a fine example. He would never watch any football or didn't love it. That's what all the ex-players sort of say. And who knows, maybe Diaby's one of them guys who doesn't really love the sport apart from playing it. And then the money for those guys probably is what they're after, isn't it? Rather than playing in the top leagues.
Speaking of transfers, Callum Chambers has left the club. He did give a message to say thank you to all the Villa supporters and the club. What are your thoughts on Callum Chambers leaving the club?
Good move for all, for me. I think, he's a good servant for Villa and never complained, never whinged, did he? And just got on with things, and even last season stepped in when he was required, and just a model professional. And I just wish him good luck, and I think it's a great move for everyone involved. I think he's gone to Cardiff, so club close to me, and I think he'll do really well. I think in the Championship he'll be a really good player, good asset for Cardiff.
A good leader as well. Do you reckon he'll be a leader, like in a leadership group?
Oh yeah, without doubt. Where he's played, he's played in the Championship before, played with Fulham, Arsenal, Villa. Like he'll go into that Cardiff squad and be one of the big hitters in there. And there's a few other players sort of hanging around, but I'm happy he's got his move, because there'd be nothing worse for him than sitting, on the bench or even making the squads. And you can't begrudge these players. They've signed contracts, but I'm sure he wants to play football, doesn't he? And he's like you say, he's still got plenty of football in front of him. So I think it's a brilliant move for him.
Spud, he had the opportunity to leave, didn't he? In January January just gone, Callum Chambers, and decided not to leave.
Well, apparently he had an offer from Hull to go on loan for the rest of the season, guaranteed first team football, and he turned it down. So interesting from him. Again, we're not privy to the terms of the loan, so maybe financially it just wouldn't make sense. And at his age, again, he's entitled to make his own decision. I think this is a right move for everyone. He's not a Premier League footballer anymore. I think he's done a job for us, but he was used, let's be honest, very sparingly. Very good professional though. He never kicked up a fuss at Villa, even when he wasn't getting on. And I think for him, for me, like I kind of knew his card was marked. Gerrard obviously brought him in. And then Emery took over as manager, someone who had previously had him at Arsenal, and he wasn't in that opening day squad. And I remember saying this at the time, and I was like, if you're a player who knows the manager's system, and that manager is coming into a new club, and you're not getting off the bench in the first game as someone who already knows that manager's system, then you're never going to really make it long term, with that club, because like if I went into a club as a manager in the morning, you'd turn to the players who know your system, wouldn't you? Like to get you off to a good foot. And I don't think he kicked the ball for Emery's first 3 or 4 games or something. So I think the writing's been on the wall a long time. I like that Emery gave him a run out for the last game of the season to kind of give him a bit of respect. I've no badness towards Callum Chambers. He's never really let us down. Odd mistake here and there, but name a player who doesn't. Good move. I think he's a championship level player these days, and he deserves to go and play some first team football, and hopefully he finds his one position, because there must be nothing worse as a professional footballer than being moved around positions all the time and never actually being a player in one position,
I liked him, Callum Chambers. I felt like I didn't think he was a player that could start for our team all the time. And if you're not, sometimes I have the view of, if you're not even getting a kick at your previous club, it's difficult for me, this is my opinion, to bring somebody in who you think is just going to come and probably sit on your bench as well. Yeah. And I don't understand those types of moves, and it was a Steven Gerrard move, but now I understand Steven Gerrard, so I understand the move.
And as we talk about Steven Gerrard's moves, that takes us on to the next one, which is perfect test. And I'm going to ask you about your opinion on this to start with. There was a pretty much not officially confirmed today, but there was a confirmed by the top reporters today. We've made a signing in Amadou Onana.
His name's not Andre. And
sorry, Amadou Onana.
Andre, because he'll lose his marbles.
Onana from Everton. We've signed him. 6'6".
Yes.
Big, burly, holding midfielder, obviously box to box. I want to hear your thoughts on that. And the reason why Steven Gerrard jogged my memory for that, and Ryno's going to laugh when I say this, is I always say that I went to Villa and Everton a few years ago, and Onana came off the bench, and Villa had Steven Gerrard had Emi Buendia marking Onana in the box, and I remember ringing Villa Park that day, and I just couldn't believe what I was saying. The height difference.
I remember that game as well, and it was our opening game of the season.
It was our first home game of the season, yeah.
Yeah,
we lost 2-0 to Bournemouth the week before in the opening game.
That's right. And I remember it because I knew you were at the game, and I remember Diego Carlos obviously snapped his Achilles in that game. Yeah, and I remember Onana coming off the bench, and he destroyed us. When he came on, he just went through. It changed the game completely, and we just couldn't handle him, could we? We were just all over the place when he came on. Like you say, 6'6". Big unit. So, do you know the first thing I thought? Right, that transfer came out of left field, right? Because we've already signed Ross Barkley, Bernachea from Juventus. We've already got Kamara, who's probably out till Christmas. So I didn't see this as a position that we'd be looking for, the defensive midfield role. I thought, with Barkley coming in, sitting a bit deeper, and Bernachea, I thought we might go for someone a bit in a different mold, maybe a bit more progressive, like, because Tess touched off on it earlier, you know, probably Douglas Luiz leaving and Onana coming in. It's not quite a like for me in the way that I've seen Onana play. It's not to say Emery's going to probably deploy him somewhat differently, but yeah, I was quite surprised at this one, but really happy. I've been reading a lot of comments online, and a lot of Everton fans have got, you know, mixed reviews about Onana, but for me, the profile, 22-year-old, big physical presence, which we sorely miss. You know, we're quite a small team, really, aren't we? Without Diego Carlos, Solly Watkins, the rest are not really a big lad. So I think he's going to add that big presence for us, that big Patrick Vieira presence, which I think will be really good in the middle. Yeah, I'm excited. Came out of nowhere, and yeah, just interested to see now how all these, again, how do we fit in Barkley, Kamara, Bernachea, and if Onana actually signs as well. And I've no doubt there'll be more movements. I'm just really interested to see how all these pieces start to fit now.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
he's a big lad. He's a big lad. As I said, I couldn't believe it that day. I was sitting in the Trinity Road stand, and I was sitting with my good mate Jim, who got me the tickets, and me and Jim were sitting there, and Onana was coming off the bench, and I'd known a lot about Onana at that stage because he'd been the driving force behind getting Lille to the Champions League that year, and then he signed for Everton, and I was watching this lad coming off the bench, and I was like, he is huge. I was looking around our team, and we had Buendia, Coutinho, and then I was like, we're highly relying on Mings and Martinez, who are on the opposite side of the pitch on here. And next thing he came sauntering on, and then Luca Dean and Buendia just started kind of sauntering towards him, and I was like, oh boy, this does not look good. So, we're 1-0 up at this point, right? Danny Ings was after scoring again, not a 6-footer. And I was looking at the whole pitch, and I had a good view from the Trinity Road side, and I was like, Onana was just towering over any outfield player down there. Next thing, everything got a corner. And I just seen Buendia guiding himself towards Onana. I was like, I thought, I'll never forget it. I messaged you after, or to the group, I remember. I was watching, I was like, Buendia is not going off to mark him. Surely not. And I said to Jim, the way they're setting up there, I says, Onana's being marked by Buendia. Sure. And sure enough, Onana positioned himself, and you could tell, you know when you're watching football, lads, and you see that the players gearing up to make the run, into the box, and next thing, Buendia was tasked to marking him, and I was like, oh no way, you know what I mean? No offense to Buendia, but I'm a small lad myself. But honestly, no, Buendia was literally up the just above his hip. Obviously he was there as a blocker, and I was like, I couldn't figure out in the long term why Stephen Gerrard lost his job. It was shocking, lads. If you could see it in the flesh, Buendia marking Onana. But just to bring us back to your point about Onana anyway.
Yeah, good.
Happy?
Yes. Yes, because I've watched him a few times for Everton. I think he's a really good player. I like good tackler, strong, good pass of the ball. He was doing a few of those sort of 1-2s with Decore at some points. When I watched him a few times, he's decent player, young, tall, and I don't know. It looks to me like Emery said, we need size in this team, in this squad. And I'm looking around, and I'm like, you got Barkley, he's 6 foot, isn't he? Barkley,
6'2", yeah.
Dobbins doesn't look too short either, but you got Bernachea, he's 6'2", 6 foot.
Barkley and Bernachea, they're both 6'2", yeah.
You know, he's bringing in some height into the squad. We've got some height in the defense and stuff like that too. But I think it's a really, really kind of brave signing, because he was a good player at Everton under a manager who I don't think is. Don't get me wrong. Sean Dyche is a good manager, I can't ever see Sean Dyche getting a top job though because of the style of football that he plays. He would say, I can only play this type of style of football because of the players that I have at disposal.
Yeah.
I disagree with that because we had a squad that wasn't able to compete properly, and Emery came in and changed the way that those players played, gave them belief, and they played a whole different way. I saw that with my very own eyes. He will come to Villa, and he will be getting coached on how we play our game, on keeping the ball, and I think it'll be of benefit. You know, when we have those sort of midfield battles and, you know, the ball's in the air, you need somebody to get up and head that ball. He can do that. You know, he's strong. He hold the ball up and all these sorts of things. So I'm really excited about him. He's young too. He's only 22.
22,
which is really, really 23.
Yeah.
Sorry, 23 then.
No, 22, I think.
22.
I thought it was 22.
22, yeah.
And he's still got a long way to go, and he's only going to get better. You know, he played at Everton for a couple of seasons, and you can see what type of player he is. And you think you put him into a team with other good players, and he's going to shine. And I think that he will shine with Villa under Unai Emery and with the good squad that we're currently building.
John Townley from the Birmingham Live had a very good article up earlier there as well, and it's something that you kind of notice anyway, like if you watch him a lot anyway. Villa were statistically the second worst team for losing aerial duels in the Premier League last season, but Onana was the top midfielder in the top 5 leagues in Europe of the top midfielders to win aerial duels. So obviously,
I'm not surprised.
So that's obviously a direct correlation to fix that, you know. But he can play as well. He has feet.
Yeah.
He's not just a big, strong physical player. As Tess said earlier, he could easily transition to a box-to-box, like, you know. He's not just a sitting holder.
And he's played a lot of football as well. Given he's only 22, you know, he's played, you know, a couple of seasons at Lille, a couple of seasons at Everton. He was in Germany before that, Belgian international. So he's, you know, he's one who's going to hit the ground running, isn't he? Already played in the Premier League, so that's a real big bonus, I think. Just coming in, knows the league, knows how it is and how physical it is. How do you boys think it's all going to line up though? Because I've just named, you know, some of the midfielders in our squad. Like, where do the boys fit? Like, where does Onana? How do you see that sort of working out if Kamara comes back and is fit? Can you see both of them playing together, or do you think it's one in and someone else with them? How do you see it?
I think Emery will look at last season. Towards the end of last season is that, and you could probably say the same towards the end of the season before as well. By the end of the season, I wouldn't say we got found out, but teams kind of started to know how to set up against us, like pack the midfield. I don't think there's going to be any one glove fits all this season. I think we're going to see a couple of different systems. Looking at who we're signing, I think we're going to see a back 5 sometimes. We're going to see a back 3. No, we're going to obviously have our base of what we are. Like, that's, you know, but I think there'll definitely be times we'll see Kamara. Like, that's making sure that Kamara comes back the same player he was, because who knows, but age is on his side. But they can definitely play together as a double pivot. 100% they can. You look at Ross Barkley. Can Ross Barkley do the Douglas Luiz position? Well, he can travel with a ball. He can take a ball probably in more tighter spaces than Douglas Luiz did. Does he have the passing range of Douglas Luiz? Probably not. But there's other players that do. Jacob Ramsey will probably start to play a little bit more centrally, I believe, because now that Morgan Rogers is there, as Tess said earlier, Morgan Rogers can play number 10. Easy. He's a ball traveller. I think every player we're signing at the moment seems to be one of these players that can play a different position. So I wouldn't be surprised to see us playing different systems at home to away, to the Champions League, to the Premier League, to the Cup. You know, I think we're going to be very much horses for courses next season. And I know we've said that in previous years as well, but just the way the squad building is going this year, I think it's going to be more prevalent than anything. Because you look like Samuel Iling-Junior and stuff, like, he can play left wing, he can play wing back, he can, you know, like what's happening to him? The fact that Villa turned Luca Dean down to go to the Olympics, that says to me they must be planning to keep him, unless they're trying to keep him fit. But what do you think, guys? Do you see us kind of changing systems, or do you see Kamara and Onana being able to play together? And as Ryno says,
I definitely think they could play together. I definitely think they'll be able to play together. I'm looking at it and I'm saying, when Emery came in, he said that he wanted 2 players for every position. I think he's on his way to getting that wish. I think the club have been really good in backing him and just letting him and once you just run the football side of stuff. Really difficult to say who he's going to play with, because at the moment I think we're going to have different ways of playing, more than we've seen before.
Yeah. Next
season's going to be a lot different. I think we're going to see a lot more rotation in players as well. Because I'm one of those that really likes to see. I like to see the same players playing week in, week out. Like, I like to know that that's the team and that's your best 11. But I'm not a tactician, and I think we played players that we probably, if we had a better squad, or sorry, not better, bigger squad, we would have played different players for different matches if we could have, and we just didn't have that option. This season, we're going to have that option, I believe. Besides, if we don't have the injuries, then we're going to be able to play different players in different positions for different matches. Some players will get starts in the cup matches, and some players are going to get a rest. And those players that start in some of those cup matches are probably going to get a rest depending on how far we progress in those competitions, right? Because if you get to like a semi-final of one of the cups, which I think we're going to do this season, then you're going to want to bring in your strongest. You want to bring in your strongest players, right? And the other guys have done a really good job to get you there, and they've all had some game time. So yeah, going to be different. I think it's going to be a very different season. I think we're going to look at something that we've never seen before, in terms of the way that we play, the way that the squad is rotated, and hopefully it'll be good to see some of the old school players back as well. I'd like to see Tyrone Mings come back this season and get some games. I'd really like to see him, because he's been working so hard. I don't know if you guys have watched on Instagram.
Yeah.
He's been over to the United States and he's been just working so hard, and I can't wait to see him come back into the fold. And of course it's going to be difficult for him to get into the first team because he hasn't been playing for over a year, but I just can't wait to see someone like him with his leadership skills come back into the squad and get some game time. Really good to see Emi Buendia training and working hard, and hoping to see him and Kamara to come back and blending in with all these new signings that we've got. I'm so excited by the signings that we've got, by the way. Like, I think the transfer market has been like one of the best transfer markets I've ever seen. Like, I just think it's out of this world at the moment.
It's exciting, isn't it?
I'm just every time I think about it, I'm just buzzing. Like, I'm just like, oh my God, like, we're buying players for 50 million quid. Like, are you kidding me?
Just going back to Onana, I think, he's definitely going to give us the option of, we've got Ian Maatsen playing left back to just let him bomb forward. You got the player like Onana, and then, who can sit in and protect that back 4 or back 3, whatever it is. But a big component of our play is Pau Torres taking the ball forward and starting to open up play. And I think that's going to be having someone like Onana sitting in that midfield. If Pau Torres picks the ball up and wants to go forward with it, it won't break the lines, and he's got a great range of passing. I think he's going to be really important for us. I think he'll do a job in there. And like you say, that physicality, the athleticism, just drop in, let players go forward. Same as the right back. Whoever starts at right back, I think they might have a license to get further forward again and give us a bit of width, because typically we haven't had a lot of width, have we? We've got a lot of wide players who like to cut in, like your Baileys, your JJs, your Morgan Rogers. They all like seem to want to come in and play quite central. So I think having players like Maatsen and even Matty Cash out wide, I think, and Luca Dean as well, obviously, is going to give us some really nice width. But we've got that protection now of having someone like Onana be able to sit in there and just shore things up.
The thing for me as well, like that, like, you know, when Kamara does come back from injury as well, like, you know, when you, like in the games that you can, like maybe against the bigger sides, when you can have Kamara and Onana in there together, is like, you know, like we seen last year, Kamara was brilliant at dropping in and helping out the back two, so the wing backs could push forward, or sorry, the full backs could push forward, but then you lost that screen like in front of you. When they play together, Kamara is going to be able to drop in and help the two centre backs. You still have that screen with Onana. Imagine how much the full backs are going to take the ball out. Matson get up forward, and yet you're still not losing that shape and that protection in front. So it's very exciting. I think it's going to allow systems to be really, really
and Kamara
good.
can travel with the ball too, can't he? We've seen it. You know, he gets himself out of these tight little spots, which I was just like adored watching last season when he was playing. And so he can. We've got players who can do a bit of everything at the moment, and the squad's looking really nice, to be fair.
And Dougie's going to be
no. I was just about. No, you go, Spud. You go.
Dougie's going to be a loss, but when you look at Ross Barkley with Luton last year, he was able to take the ball in tight spots as well. You know, so that's not going. Obviously, we're going to lose Dougie's passing range a little bit, but I think Barkley is probably that little bit better at traveling with the ball, and once he's taken in the only thing I will say though is that Dougie will be a huge loss for Ollie's off the shoulder running, because Dougie was so good at taking the ball and just taking on the half turn and then releasing Ollie. We've seen so many goals like that, you know.
Somebody else will be charged with doing it, though. I think that's part of Ollie's game, and I think somebody else will.
Yeah, the classic was the ball against Brentford, wasn't it, for Ollie Watkins, where he just pings it outside of the boot and Ollie races onto it. I think Douglas Luiz and his vision, like you say, that'll be a big miss, and that's going to be interesting how we fill that gap and how we. But they're all technically gifted, though, aren't they? Kamara, Onana, Barkley, you know, they're all good with ball at feet as well as being, you know, physical guys and can run all day, but they're all you can tell the profile that Emery's going after. He wants ball playing, but he wants that physicality as well, doesn't he?
I think he I think he sees Rodgers and Ramsey as a bit of a project as well. I think he, you know, two young lads who are clearly talented. Like I think he's gonna turn them into Emery's project. I think those two are going to be just critical over the next couple of seasons, you know.
I think he likes Rodgers.
Did you see the clip of Unai Emery saying to Morgan Rogers, "You painted your hair. Looks beautiful."
I think he likes Rodgers. I think that's why he brought him in. And I think there's all of a sudden our squad looks young but experienced as well. I don't know if you see that. You know, we've got some young, decent players.
I think age profile is important though, Tess, isn't it? We touched off in the last episode when we done the Australian Villa players and we talked about Glenn Wade and Millie Ednack and all that, and we talked about maybe Dean Smith's remit was to get the age of the squad down. We're starting to see that now,
go back and check it out. It was a really good episode, by the way.
Really good, you know. So I think age profile, that's a very good pickup from your Tess. I think it's definitely noticeable now again. And again, we don't want to go down that route, but the PSR probably comes into play with that. And I think most clubs are starting to buy players that are talented that may have resale value in the future if needed, you know. Guys, we've covered a lot tonight. It's been a really good chat. Lot going on. It's exciting being a Villa fan.
Oh my gosh.
It's like, you know, like we must be the most active club in the Premier League at the moment. And it's I looked the other day, confirmed. Take away Onana, take away anything. We're 6 in, 6 out at the moment for first team players. It's mad, isn't it?
Does that worry you, boys, that like there's going to be a lot of new faces and a bit of not disruption, but there's a few players who've come in there that are not tried and tested at this level, like Barnechea, Iling-Junior. Does it worry you that the balance might take a while for us to gel and to get up and running?
Well, seeing what Emery done with like seasoned pros like Yuri Tillemans and didn't introduce him straight away, no, because most clubs in the Premier League would have put Yuri Tillemans in as a starter straight away, but Emery didn't. So he obviously knows how to integrate players. And by the end of the season, Yuri Tillemans was one of our most important players.
Important.
Morgan Rogers was picked up because he was doing analysis on Middlesbrough, and then he came in for a cheap price and he was massively important after JJ got injured. So I do understand what you're saying. Under Dean Smith, we brought a lot of players in, but that just doesn't concern me with Emery, to be honest. I think Emery, Monchi, Vidigani, there's going to be some signings that will never touch off the first team, will just be pure PSR signings. But no, like these players coming in, no, I think they know what they want, who they want. There's going to be ones they get wrong, of course there is, but I think 80% of their signings are going to be right, like, to be honest.
Yeah.
One of the things that Unai Emery kept saying last season is that, especially to do with Tielemans, is that he still needs to find the way and learn how we play here for him to fit into the system. He didn't get to play every single game, and then all of a sudden it became, Tielemans came on a free and he's thinking about leaving because he's not getting game time. And Emery was like, he's a player that we want. He just needs to be able to play in our system, in our style, the way that we play. And I think that's fair enough. You can't do it straight away. Like, he was used to playing for a team that got relegated. No disrespect, but he's coming to a team where the manager's trying to build something. He's trying to build a style of play. Do you remember how we all lost our minds? I don't know if you guys. I lost my mind when we first started playing out from the back. I was like, "Oh my god, don't do it! Like, let's not." Yeah. But given time afterwards, I was like, I can see what's happening here. I understand what's going on. I understand what he wants us to do. And again, we've got a lot of new players, but he's got the preseason with a lot of these players. Some of the more established players are away with their nations playing in competitions. So, especially in the Euros and stuff. So, and they'll be back soon, and they'll be back in time to play preseason games. Some of them might not get to start earlier on in the season. That's because they still need to learn how to play our style of football. And so I'm not really worried, Ryno. Yeah, I think we'll be all right. Come on, Unai.
It's exciting going into the new season, isn't it? Like, it is. Ryno, if any of our listeners want to get in touch with you, where may they find you?
You can get me on X at Ryno_Watkins, and on Instagram it's at Ryno_Watkins3.
And what about yourself, Des?
So you can get me at Cuban_Night for those who are listening to the podcast on Spotify and Apple, and for those who are on screen, you can find me right here.
Yeah, and anyone that wants to listen to my drivel, I'm at AVFC Spud, capital A, capital S. But more importantly, Tess, do you want to tell them where you can find the pod itself?
Yeah, so the pod's available on YouTube. So you can see those pretty guys' faces, Ryno and Spud, those good-looking blokes. You can watch them on YouTube. On the YouTube channel, just look for the Villa Pride Down Under, and you'll be able to find it. We're also on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts, so please subscribe, like, share with your friends. Big shouts out to all of those who have been communicating with us in Australia, because that is our audience as well, because that's where we're based. And I think that's all the shout outs I need to do at the moment. Big shouts out to Unai Emery.
All right.
Actually, Spud, just quickly.
Go for it, buddy.
You had an interesting follower the other day, because we did this episode last week, which is a really good episode. So everyone go check out the episode last week, what we did on the Australian former Aston Villa players. Really interesting conversation that we had, and some memories were brought up, and you're just thinking, oh my goodness, I didn't remember that player, or I didn't remember that. Yeah. But you had an interesting follower last week, Spud. Do you want to tell us very quickly before we sign off? Do you want to tell us who that was?
I don't think I've ever got starstruck on Twitter in my life, but after I posted the links of our podcast last week, and before I know it, I had Mark Bosnich now follows you, and I was like, it was probably in my social media life, because I'm not a massive social media guy. It was probably one of the most proudest moments of my life.
I was so proud for you too. I was just like, unbelievable.
That kid inside me came screaming back out again, saying, Mark Bosnich! No, amazing, because myself, Ryno and Tess, obviously, we put a lot of work into this podcast, and when we sent the links for the three of us, Tess done an amazing job as well at the thumbnail, and he had all the old players, Brett Holman, Tess, had Mark Bosnich, Brett Holman, just brilliant. And we talked about all the players. Check that episode out. Ryno took a trip down memory lane about Mark Bosnich, obviously a big hero of his, and we all come from that generation of that team, like with Mark Bosnich and every stuff, and to post that online and for Mark Bosnich to add myself and the boys as a follow, just huge proud moment, because that's what it's about. It's an Australian Villa podcast, so the most famous Australian to ever put on the claret and blue is Mark Bosnich. So Mark, if you're listening, mate, thank you very much, and we look forward to having you on. We look forward to having you on in the future.
Yes.
Ryno's not going to send you a Christmas card anymore. He's like, no way.
Boys, we're going to wrap it up at that, and we'll obviously be back again next week as per usual. And I think we're not going to go into it, but just before, we're not going to say too much about it, but we're going to catch you off guard now before we wrap up, because this goes out after the results. So straight away, Tess, what score tonight going to be? England and Spain. Without going too much analysis, give me a scoreline.
2-1 England.
Ryno.
2-1 Spain.
Perfect. I hate to say it, 2-0 Spain, but I'm hoping it'll be 2-1 Ollie Watkins.
Unbelievable. Ollie Watkins to get the winner in the 90th minute.
Wouldn't it be amazing? Unbelievable.
I think he's look, before we just sign off quickly, he deserved that, and we'll talk about it more next week.
Yeah, I'm delighted from Up the Villa.
Yeah, up the Villa.